After watching my GRH PDF overview, a viewer asked about the color scales in Magick, particularly why the Golden Dawn's King and Queen scale colors get all the attention, especially in such rites, whereas the Prince and the Princess are seldom discussed. Due to this, I decided to discuss a few basics to hopefully bring clarity. Color scales in Magick. There are 4 color scales: King, Queen, Prince, and Princess. Reflecting Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh's fourfold nature, these map to the Qabalistic worlds, the tarot suits, the elements, the aspects of the soul, etc. Understanding why GRH uses the first two requires understanding the forces it works with, namely the planets and the Zodiac Signs, both of which have a dual nature or a practical and a mystical aspect. The paths or the practical aspects are attributed to Atsilut and the King scale, whereas the Sephiroth or the mystical aspects to Braya and the Queen scale. Examples. When working with the planet's practical aspect, you employ those colors for its hexagrams and sigils. For Jupiter, that's the deep violet of the 21st path King scale. For Mercury, it is the yellow of the 12th path in the same colors. On the other hand, these examples change for the mystical or Sephirotic aspects, as Hes's Briatic color is deep blue, whereas Hot's is actually orange. Identical colors. In some cases, there really isn't a change in colors for both scales, or at least not a significant, like the path of Pe and Gebura for Mars, and the path of Tet and Netzach for Venus. Zodiac Signs. The Zodiac Signs follow a somewhat similar dynamic. For their practical aspects, i.e. the Zodiac paths, they use Atsilutic colors for the hexagram, but complementary ones for the sigil, and this is a reflective color pattern on which the so-called Golden Dawn's flashing colors are actually built. Chokmah. Unlike the planets, which actually have different spheres, the signs all attribute to Chokmah, the sphere of the Zodiac. This means that for their mystical aspects, all of them use Chokmah's gray. Names. While many of the planetary names match in Atsilut and Braya, there are differences. The most apparent is that the planetary paths go with the spirit names, whereas the Sephiroth with those of the intelligences. In some instances, there are also actual differences in the hard names, like in Hesed Jupiter's El and Awa El Ab or Abba, such as Raphael and Michael and Tiferet and Hot. Raphael and Michael. Besides Tiferet's Archangel, Raphael is actually that of Mercury, the 12th path, Bet, and the practical aspect of Hot. Besides Hot Archangel, Michael is actually that of the Sun, the 30th path, Resh, and the practical aspect of Tiferet. Swapping Archangels. This may be one of the reasons why many swap out their places in pentagram rituals, essentially adopting the density model. By doing so, one may find that the active elements are actually grouped with the active fiery tree, whereas the passive ones with the watery one, although there are not many options for the latter. Let me know your thoughts. Flexibility. While it may not be the most optimal, the previous really doesn't mean you cannot use mystical aspects for practical work and vice versa. For instance, L for Jupiter. Actually, that is how most books are written and how many do it. The best place to look for those names is in 777 in the column God Names of Asiya. In addition to the more popular Sephiroth names, the table includes Agrippa's path or planets' names. Permutations. For Atsilut, the signs utilize what are called the 12 permutations of the Tetragrammaton found in the Golden Dawn, and for Braya, they employ names of Chokmah. Fire and water. As you can see, the King and the Queen scale colors perfectly handle the explained duality. The first attribute to causing external changes and outward projection, whereas the second to receptivity and internal processes like acquiring information, arriving at conclusions, etc. The Prince. Air is the product of fire and water clashing or actually having sex. While I have never used it in rites like GRH and its predecessor SRH, there are claims it provides clear, emotional and intellectual energy, which actually makes sense given that the Prince scale attributes to Yetzirah, including Netzach and Hot. Now, consider one is fiery, mirroring Gebura, whereas the other watery, emanating from Hesed. Princess. Earth is the byproduct of fire and water having air as their child. Hence, the Princess colors are scattered and incoherent. This displays irrationality and lack of logic, which may or may not allude to the Clifford, considering that the Princess actually touches the shells. Now, think that half of Malkuth in rites like the middle pillar and the three pillars is actually in the ground. Mixture of elements. Sandra Tabata Cicero hypothesizes that the princess scale is very haphazard due to this mixture of elements and likely comes from scrying, hence the inconsistencies on which may be worth meditating alongside the lowest square of the rose cross. Muddied Colors. In my humble opinion, the princess scale expresses the same as the mentioned part of the rose cross. Being a synthesis of everything in the symbol, the same includes all elements, yet they are muddied, mixed and similarly inconsistent, representing the denser material energies. Suggestions. All this doesn't mean you cannot use the lower two scales. A way to do so is by employing them for the three pillars or perhaps even the middle pillar rites. Another is by doing the first with all four scales consecutively to enter deeper meditative states. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you agree, subscribe for more, check my products and books, and thank you for your time.